You know what you must do.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my House of the Dragon Season 3 video. They just spent most of that Season 2 finale teasing moments they pay off in Season 3. Like, most of the finale was an appetizer just setting up Season 3. And even though they did change a lot of book plot for the characters, we have a pretty good idea of what that means for their plots in Season 3. Like, things will continue along that path, changing more from the book story. But I think we have a pretty good template for what those changes will look like. So we'll break it all down, and I will do Season 3 videos throughout the rest of the year because they'll be filming later this year. HBO also released that first teaser trailer for Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. I'll do a video for that tomorrow. It'll be the next big Game of Thrones prequel series. We'll be getting episode videos for that next year because, first big WTF, Season 3 of House of the Dragon will not premiere until 2026. In my early prediction right now, and this is based on what happened with Season 2, like what was going on behind the scenes, there will also only be 8 episodes for Season 3. I think they're going to try and do 8 episodes again. This was a big point of contention during Season 2. A lot of people had questions about this. Why only 8 episodes? One of the producers, Sarah Hess, even commented on it early on, saying that it was not their choice to only do 8 episodes. Meaning that the showrunner, the producers, everybody behind the scenes had written for 10 episodes, like they'd originally plotted out a season for 10, which is a normal Game of Thrones season, like House of the Dragon Season 1 was also 10 episodes. Pretty standard operating procedures, so what gives? And based on the best information that we have, the reason why they cut 2 episodes for Season 2 is primarily a result of the larger financial problems at Warner Bros. Discovery that they've been having the last few years as a result of all that buyout nonsense. Their money problems were compounded by the strikes last year. Like, that was also a big thorn in their side. All the studios in general, not just Warner Brothers, which does own HBO, but Disney, Paramount, Sony, pretty much everybody pulled way back on their budgets. So it sounds like they told HBO they were not allowed to spend as much money as they needed to get 10 episodes out. House of the Dragon costs around $20 million per episode average, so the overlords at Warner Brothers probably told the HBO people to cut $40 million out of the budget. So they're like, well, we only have money for 8 episodes, not 10. The funny thing about this is that back during the events of the main show, HBO was happy to give Dan and Dave as much money as they wanted to finish as many episodes as they wanted. It was actually their decision to do fewer number of episodes, not HBO's decision. So I feel like as soon as the House of the Dragon people are allowed to spend the money that they need to get 10 episodes per season out, they will do that again. But it just feels like they will not give them that money. So it'll be 8 episodes per season for the next 2 seasons. Case in point, Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is only supposed to be 6 episodes for the first season. But part of the reason for that is because there's way less book material that they're adapting for Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. And it's the same kind of situation with House of the Dragon. Like, there's way less actual book material. Number 9, getting to the actual story of it all, real important stuff, Rhaenyra will probably take King's Landing at the beginning of Season 1. I would not be surprised if it happens at the end of Episode 1 or like Episode 2, like really quick. They want to open the season with a moment as strong as Blood and Cheese, and there are a couple easy setups that they did for that, the biggest being the fall of King's Landing as it's referred to in the books. Daemon and Rhaenyra taking their dragons to King's Landing. On the show, the way they've changed this from the books, though, is to have Alicent be the one to give Rhaenyra the idea to actually do it. In the books, they do it once Aemon leaves the city with Vhagar, making it pretty easy pickings for them. But on the show, it was Alicent who told Rhaenyra that Aemon plans to leave, so she knows when to strike, take the Iron Throne, and also on top of that, Alicent plans to make it easy for her for the transition, telling Helaena to basically step aside the minute the Rhaenyra walks into the Iron Throne room. It's also the whole reason why Daemon saw her on the Iron Throne with her crown in his Weirwood vision. That also wasn't him interpreting any particular vision. That was him literally seeing a moment from the future as it's supposed to happen. So we see her looking like this probably somewhere in the first 2 episodes. I wouldn't be surprised if they end episode 1 on a moment like this. Number 8, Rhaenyra's big problem in Season 3 now is all the problems that the Greens just dumped on her, letting her figure stuff out. Like, they're not our problems anymore. You control King's Landing, so they're your problems now. How does she feed those starving small folk, especially with the Triarchy fleet coming in, which will also potentially complicate the blockade, further keeping her from bringing shipments of food in? There's also the idea that the Greens spent all the Crown's money, so there's no money to spend on more food or supplies for the small folk. So be prepared for the small folk to turn on Rhaenyra just like they turned on the Greens. They do not care who is in power as long as they get fed. As long as they get their bowl of brown, it's all the same to them. Number 7, another big problem for Rhaenyra. She spoke to Corlys Velaryon about this, that she didn't know the character of her dragon seeds except for Adam, meaning big wild cards, Hugh Hammer and Ulf White, and they control some of the biggest dragons. That could literally wind up biting her in the end. They really wanted you to think in the finale that Ulf White was going to be the one to betray her, by the way he showed her so much flagrant disrespect. Kinda seemed like he wanted to kill Jace too. The way they're setting his character up, they want to make it seem like he could be bought pretty easily by the Greens. All they'd have to do is promise him all the food, money, women, wine that he could handle, and he'd probably do anything that they want him to do. So what they lack in number of dragons, they can make up for by just buying one of the dragon seeds essentially, or paying one of them off. Hugh Hammer is a bit of a different beast though, like they wanted to show his character being a very different type of person. I don't think he'd be as easily bought by the Greens, but they said that his wife is headed to Tumbleton. We know there's going to be a big battle there eventually, and even though I think they'll change his book story, they tried to make it seem like his family matters more to him than any of these nobles. Like he doesn't really care about Rhaenyra that much, he really just cares about his family. So he could be driven to betray Rhaenyra for the sake of his family. But it would still amount to the same thing, two of Rhaenyra's biggest, most powerful dragon riders betraying them. To his credit though, Hugh Hammer does seem way more honorable than Ulf White. If one of them is going to turn, keep your eyes on Ulf White first. The only dragon seed that seems 100% loyal to her is Adam right now. Speaking of new dragon riders, number 6, Rhaena, probably going to finally claim and ride Sheepstealer in the first few episodes. She ran an absolute marathon through the last couple of episodes of season 2, like she's going to be in shape to win the Olympics. They really pulled the taffy on that storyline. A lot of people were actually joking that they didn't mind her storyline because it showed off more of the veil that we've seen in any other show so far. Once she does claim Sheepstealer, she'll likely help them in one of the big battles during season 3. Otherwise, there'd be no point in her claiming a dragon. Like the whole idea is that they're having this conflict, they need as many dragons as possible, and that's why she wants to claim one. Because it would mean that she could be useful in the actual war. Somebody check on Rhaenyra's kids and those eggs that she was sent to actually protect. That was actually her big mission, that she was supposed to protect them. Now that she's off busy running through the Vale, somebody check in on the kids to see how they're doing. Another reminder too that they were going to take the Gay Abandoned to Essos, and on the way from Essos we have the Triarchy fleet coming, so really bad news, really bad combination there with Rhaenyra's kids heading to sea as the Triarchy fleet is approaching. On a more positive note though, Rhaena claiming Sheepstealer would be a huge thing for Daemon. He would be like the most proud father you could possibly be in the Targaryen family. Number 5, Daemon and Rhaenyra will probably successfully pull a fast one on Aemond and the Greens. He said that he planned to march his army of Rivermen to King's Landing in 2 days, and Aemond right now is obsessed with going to Harrenhal with Vhagar. He sent Criston Cole, he has these other armies all marching on Harrenhal, like he is absolutely obsessed with taking it back. So he thinks that he's going to meet Daemon and Rhaenyra at Harrenhal. But Daemon's whole master plan is that he was going to try and beat all the Greens' armies, particularly the Lannisters coming from the Westerlands, and march his Rivermen to King's Landing in the next 2 days before they showed up. Now we saw them arrive at the edge of the Riverlands at the end of the finale. They're still not at Harrenhal, but they're very close. So what they might do now is, because Rhaenyra just learned about Aemond being gone from King's Landing, she'll probably want to move on that quickly and let Daemon know, like, no, we need to head to King's Landing right now. Hop on Caraxes. It's time to go right now. So Daemon might bail on his army of Rivermen, and they might just split up and fight some of these different factions of Greens in different places around the Riverlands, because there are a couple different factions of Greens right now. Rhaenyra also has a couple factions of her own too, because we have the Starks coming from the north as well. But it sounds like Daemon plans to be heading for King's Landing while Aemond is heading for Harrenhal, so Aemond is going to totally miss him, expecting to see him when he shows up. Like, where is everybody? Where'd everybody go? There's nobody at Harrenhal. And it'll be a parallel for when Daemon tried to storm Harrenhal, but nobody was there, and they played it off like a big joke, making Aemond seem the fool even more, which he will definitely hate. Number 4, so what they'll probably do is have the different forces from the Blacks and Greens fight smaller battles against each other through different parts of the Riverlands, instead of both sides waiting for all their forces to arrive and just having one giant battle. There are a number of major battles in the books that they'll probably base these on. There's the Battle of the Honeywine. That'll probably be the Hightower army, Daeron, Tessarion that we saw marching at the end of the episode against the Beesbury allies. They mentioned the Beesbury army a couple times through the season. This is why. That's also probably how Otto Hightower winds up getting out of prison, is probably the Beesburys that had him in that prison, and one of his forces, the Hightowers, come to rescue him. There's the Red Fork and the Fish Feed that'll involve the Lannister army and some of the Rivermen. The Fish Feed, though, is also known as the bloodiest land battle of the dance. That one involves the Winter Wolves, the Stark army. Then number 3, they kept mentioning the Red Kraken, Dalton Greyjoy, during Season 2. He becomes a much bigger character, actually joining the conflict during Season 3. Now, I expect his storyline will stay pretty close to the books, so we can't talk too much about why he joins the conflict and which person he sides with, but a lot of that storyline will just pull directly from that part of his story in the book. So if you want to read that, you can actually go do that right now. Number 2, Aemond at Harrenhal. There was a lot of talk about this when Daemon got stuck at Harrenhal for most of the season, like, can't you wait till Aemond has his own version of this? Remember, he's headed for Harrenhal, and it sounds like he's going to show up, and Daemon will have already taken off for King's Landing, and the armies of Rivermen will have split up and started fighting all the Greens in different places around the Riverlands, so essentially, nobody is going to be at Harrenhal by the time that Aemond shows up. I do not expect them to just do a carbon copy of Daemon's storyline at Harrenhal. Like, it won't be the exact same situation, but I do expect Alys Rivers to mess with him big time. If we're lucky, we'll get a couple really trippy Aemond visions. You also remember a couple different times, specifically different characters, Alys Rivers and Helaena, both told Daemon and Aemond how they were going to die and that it would involve the God's Eye. Aemond specifically said that he would challenge his uncle. He'd be happy for the challenge if it came. Meaning that the show is really hyping up Daemon versus Aemond at the God's Eye. So what they might do is they might have that challenge being issued at the end of Season 3 and just save the actual battle between them for Season 4. There's also a lot of juicy Alys Rivers and Aemond book history that they might adapt. We'll see how they do that, given how they changed all the Daemon and Alys Rivers stuff. None of that was from the books. Like, they invented that whole Daemon storyline. The number 1, this is probably the biggest thing that people have been talking about during Season 2, is the Battle of the Gullet. They'll finally do that in Season 3. That was what all the stuff with the Triarchy fleet was at the end of the episode, with them sailing for Westeros for Corlys's fleet. The Battle of the Gullet is known as the bloodiest sea battle in the history of Westeros, not just the Dance of the Dragons, but any battle in the history of Westeros. Probably why they saved it for Season 3, as opposed to trying ending Season 2 with a smaller version of it in the finale. There were a lot of us way back when Season 1 was happening that thought that they might try to adapt this for Season 2, but I can kind of see, based on the way that they cut 2 episodes for Season 2, why they would just probably save it for Season 3. My favorite sea battle in the history of Game of Thrones right now, at least on the TV shows, is during Season 2's Blackwater, and that wasn't really a sea battle so much as it was a massacre involving a bunch of wildfire. The Battle of the Gullet is an actual sea battle. There's also a lot of really big character deaths during that too, so I expect Season 3 to be when they start killing off some of the main characters in a bigger way, but I do think that a lot of them will survive to Season 4. Like, they really want to keep as many people around as possible till Season 4. Really good example of that is Helaena. In the books, there's really not that much story for her at all, but on the show, they make it seem like she's super powerful, like she has dragon dreams, which the books don't really speak of. And based on the original book timeline, we're actually beyond her character's story. Like, she dies much sooner in the story during the books. So she's a really good example of how they're going really off book with some of the characters. Rhaena is another example of that. They're basically giving her Nettle's storyline from the books, who does claim sheep stealer. The way the showrunner talked about Season 3, though, he said that Season 1, Season 2 were like the preparation for war, but Season 3 is all-out war. So I'm expecting way more frequent battles through Season 3 and Season 4, but I think there's only going to be 4 seasons. I am sure there are going to be a ton of questions just based on the changes they've already made to the show. So if there are any big questions that you do have that I didn't address in this video, just write them below in the comments and I'll add them in my future bonus videos. I've got a couple planned for this week, but like I said, my next big video will be that trailer for the Night of the Seven Kingdoms TV show. The whole vibe of that show will feel very different from House of the Dragon, which is mostly focused on the upper class, like the people inside the higher levels of the Targaryen family. Night of the Seven Kingdoms is more focused on the plight of the small folk just in general through Sir Duncan the Tall. Everybody click here for that trailer video. I'll update the link as soon as I post it, and click here for my House of the Dragon Season 2 episode videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.